So the Spirit moves through us. The Spirit is in us as believers. That's 100% true, but it's also 100% true that our minds and our hearts work together. And so that's how I think apologetics can be really helpful for a lot of people, is addressing that intellectual end.
Does apologetics need to discuss more of the role of the Holy Spirit in bringing sinners to Christ?
Yes. I guess I would say that there's a balance here. And I think that a lot of times you see Christians who kind of go on one end or the other of that. It's all this intellectual thing and, forget about the work of the Spirit. Or some Christians kind of tend to be more on the side of it's all work of the Spirit. We don't need any of this intellectual stuff. But then in reality, the Bible brings those two things together. Of course, the Holy Spirit is active today. The Holy Spirit is given to all believers. And so from that perspective, there's no question that we need to look more to the work of the Spirit in our lives. And it's always a function of both the heart and the mind. And I think that's so important to understand, because a lot of times when I get kind of a hesitancy from parents in terms of apologetics, they say, yeah, but I'm really just concerned about my child's heart and how they feel and their love for the Lord. Our mind convicts our hearts. So the more convicted that we are in our minds that Christianity is absolutely true, regardless of how I feel on a given day, no matter how rocked I get by the coronavirus, ultimately our minds convict our hearts. These things are very much connected and work. So the Spirit moves through us. The Spirit is in us as believers. That's 100% true, but it's also 100% true that our minds and our hearts work together. And so that's how I think apologetics can be really helpful for a lot of people, is addressing that intellectual end. Even for people who maybe haven't encountered it already, when they get that grounding, I talked to my husband at the rescue mission. We started an apologetics program there for the residents, because they might feel really close to Jesus while they're in a program like that, where they're confined and kind of in this small little version of society, but eventually they're going back out into the world and they're going to have to face a lot of temptations again and a lot of challenges. What happens if you don't feel God so much then? Well, that's when you kind of come back to, okay, but these are the good reasons I learned why Christianity is true. So that's a long answer, but really just to say that these things all work together. It's not one or the other. It's not the Spirit or apologetics. It's these things all together.